Welcome to the Tim Booker channel where wisdom deserves to be spread. Wishing you a pleasant listening experience. Today, I will interpret for you, willpower, rediscovering the greatest human strength. It refers to the impact generated by negative events and emotions, which is generally stronger than that of positive events and emotions. This book primarily delves into how potent the forces of negativity are and how we can avoid being dominated by them. We are prone to being influenced by negativity, leading to anxiety and fear, and subsequently making less wise decisions. For instance, when work isn't progressing smoothly, a young person might feel uneasy and discouraged, pondering when their wages might increase and when they'll have time for their aspirations. They might lose their drive for several consecutive days, unable to see the beauty in life. But it's not just young individuals. In our fast-paced, high-pressure modern society, negative events and emotions are more likely to impact us and seem more interesting. When these negatives are perceived and noted, black swans always appear, and bad news keeps updating. We often feel forced to accept the influence brought by negativity, letting negative emotions control us. The truth is, our susceptibility to negative influence isn't imposed upon us by external forces, it's actively chosen by our brains. Our brains are naturally drawn to negative events and emotions, acting like automatic detectors that seek out the bad and amplify its effects, causing tension in our bodies. Why would we voluntarily focus on things that make us uncomfortable? How can we avoid being dominated by their power? This book, presented today, has the answers to these questions. The book has two authors. One is social psychologist Roy F. Baumeister, currently teaching at the University of Queensland in Australia, and the other is John Tierney, a science columnist for the New York Times. These authors have collaborated before on a book called Willpower, mainly discussing what willpower is and how to enhance it. When it comes to not being dominated by negativity, our immediate thought is often to let the positive conquer the negative. Intuitively, we might think these two forces are equal. One bad thing happens, and we find a good thing to offset it. There's a traditional method in our culture of using good events to counteract bad luck. For instance, when an elderly family member is seriously ill, a common way to counteract bad luck is by having a younger family member get married. However, the power of good and bad isn't balanced. In the face of bad, the strength of good is considerably weaker. Baumeister has written a highly influential paper titled, "Bad is Stronger Than Good." He found that whether in daily life, intimate relationships, social interactions, or the learning process, the impact of negative events is far greater than that of positive events. Alright, today's content is divided into two parts. First, how powerful is the force of negativity? Why is it so potent? Second, how can we avoid being dominated by the force of negativity? Let's start by understanding how powerful the force of negativity is and why it holds such strength. Gaining insights into these topics will help us view the world in a more practical and less fearful light. To understand the power of negativity, the most appropriate reference is positivity. The strength of negativity is actually highlighted by the fragility of positivity. Positivity refers to positive events and emotions. For instance, a day with smooth progress at work, pleasant project collaborations, enjoyable dinner, and a movie might evoke feelings of pleasure. Psychologists have found that on many levels, negativity and positivity are not symmetrical. Negativity holds greater power. For example, criticism induces more pain than praise brings pleasure. Similarly, the impact of a negative first impression is far stronger than a positive one. Even a single instance of neglect during childhood by parents can influence a person for decades or even a lifetime, whereas we rarely remember a single positive childhood experience with the same duration. The asymmetry between negativity and positivity arises because our brains tend to amplify the impact of negativity while diminishing the impact of positivity. Psychologists call this tendency the negativity effect or negativity bias. Under the influence of the negativity effect, we pay more attention to negative things, such as natural disasters or anxieties, which have a stronger impact. This phenomenon leads us to believe that negative events hold greater power. There's a saying in Russian, "A spoon of tar can spoil a barrel of honey." However, a spoon of honey cannot change a barrel of tar. Negative events have a longer-lasting impact on us. An experiment involved placing a poisoned cockroach into a glass of apple juice and then immediately removing it. Most people not only refused to drink it but also avoided apple juice afterward, even if it was clean and fresh. Why does the negativity effect exist? The key reason is the evolution of the brain. In essence, the human brain seems to be designed for the negative. Our ancestors needed to survive in dangerous environments, which led to the gradual evolution of a threat detection system. This system is highly sensitive, reacting automatically before we consciously realize the danger, triggering fight or flight responses. This evolutionary trait makes us naturally drawn to threats. For example, an 8-month-old baby quickly turns its head to look at a picture of a snake rather than a frog. A 5-year-old child can swiftly identify fearful and angry expressions in pictures of faces, but not happy ones. You might have noticed that the brain's evolution aims to protect us from threats, which seems positive. So, how does this make negativity stronger? The environment has changed, and the threat detection system in the brain has become overly reactive. Our ancestors faced many life-threatening dangers like natural disasters and predators. The brain's evolution helped them react quickly to flee from threats. However, our modern living environment is generally safer, with few life-threatening dangers compared to the past. Nevertheless, our brains still react as if we're in constant danger, triggering alarm signals and bodily responses like increased heart rate and shortness of breath. Even the best things need to adapt to their context. These ancient responses were originally meant to protect us. As our living conditions shifted from perilous to secure, these responses became excessive, leading to irrational decisions. An example will help illustrate how the brain's threat detection system's excessive reaction can lead to erroneous decisions. There's an Austrian extreme sportsman named Felix, nicknamed Fearless Felix. At 43 years old, he faced a daunting challenge, jumping from approximately 39,000 meters above Earth's surface, just at the edge of the stratosphere. This altitude is so high that if you looked down, you'd see the blue Earth enveloped in darkness. If you have even a slight fear of heights, hearing about this challenge might make your heart race. However, for Felix, this was an everyday affair. He had already jumped from high altitudes over 2,000 times. He might be one of the most skilled individuals at managing his fears. Before the challenge, Felix could calmly list various ways he might die during the jump, such as the weather balloon bursting and him not having enough time to deploy his parachute. During his training, Felix successfully completed his first flight test in Los Angeles. Next, he had to visit an Air Force base in Texas, where he would spend 5 hours in a high-altitude chamber wearing a space suit with a helmet. This would simulate the process of ascending from ground level to the stratosphere. This step was relatively straightforward. Felix only needed to spend 5 hours in a safe environment on the ground. However, during this step, Felix was defeated by fear. He felt he couldn't complete the challenge and wanted to fly back to Austria immediately. What happened? The issue stemmed from the spacesuit, which triggered Felix's claustrophobia. Claustrophobia is a psychological condition where individuals experience fear of confined spaces. The spacesuit and helmet created an environment where Felix couldn't feel the outside air or hear external sounds. Wearing them made Felix feel trapped, triggering his fear. Despite his wealth of experience, Felix's fear got the better of him. He started rationalizing that he wouldn't be able to complete the challenge and considered flying back to Austria. How could an experienced extreme sportsman succumb to fear? He only needed to hide his fear as he usually did, but instead, his fear grew in secret. To make matters worse, the fear started appearing prematurely. Initially, Felix only felt uncomfortable while wearing the gear. Later, he began feeling fearful at the mere thought of putting on the spacesuit. On the way to the training site, Felix passed by a lake, and knowing he had 15 minutes left in the car ride triggered anxiety. The lake seemed like the entrance to a death row cell for him. The closer he got to wearing the spacesuit, the more his anxiety escalated. When he arrived at the training site and saw the lights in the changing room, smelled the rubbery odor of the helmet, Felix's heart raced, his breath became shallow, and he felt tension throughout his body. Despite just driving to the training site, not an execution ground, why did he have such a strong reaction? Because he had been telling himself stories throughout the journey. Dr. Earl Ertl, a clinical psychologist from the United States, believes that creating fear is a part of human storytelling ability. Due to the brain's evolution, just hearing about frightening scenarios can trigger vivid images in the mind, leading to fight-or-flight reactions. Felix was telling himself stories that led his body to perceive the changing room as a chamber of horrors. Consequently, the otherwise fearless Felix was defeated by claustrophobia. His rational cognition was distorted by the power of negativity. He chose to flee the situation rather than endure being in the spacesuit. It's worth noting that giving up on this challenge had severe consequences. Not only would all the efforts and resources invested by everyone involved go to waste, but Felix would also lose the trust of others, and his adventurous career might come to an end. Felix's experience demonstrates how formidable the power of negativity can be. Even an experienced adventurer couldn't overcome the fear induced by a spacesuit, and a moment of timidity could jeopardize all chances of success. In modern society, the power of negativity is not only strong, but it is also omnipresent. Have you ever wondered why there's so much negative news today? Have the recent years been more distressing, or was life better a decade or two ago? In reality, we live in a golden age of humanity, where people are progressing towards better health, greater wealth, and increased wisdom. So why does it often feel the opposite? Apart from the internal reasons rooted in the evolution of our brains, there's an external factor at play, the exploitation of negativity. The author refers to those who capitalize on negativity as crisis vendors, or peddlers of negativity. These crisis vendors use the power of negativity to exaggerate minor or non-existent threats, stoking people's fear and distorting their perspectives on the present and future, causing panic reactions. The book highlights that crisis vendors in the United States often spread doomsday theories to induce fear, like the notion that robots will take over the world or that the global environment will collapse. In a survey of American children, a third of respondents worried that the Earth would no longer exist when they grew up. Some crisis vendors are motivated by genuine concerns, and they often do believe in the threats they're warning about, even if they are exaggerated. Others, however, have less noble motives. They are like the fox in the story, preying on the vulnerability of those who seek safety. The power of words is immense, and when crisis vendors are involved, it's important not to let them dominate our thoughts. So, how can we resist this domination and even harness the power of negativity for our benefit? Let's explore this question further. We know that purification makes our brains susceptible to the influence of negativity. However, it also equips our brains with rational thinking, allowing us to withstand the impact of negativity and even turn it to our advantage. The book offers several strategies to cope with negativity, but let's focus on two. One approach is to pause, while the other involves using negativity. What does it mean to pause? Let's return to the story of Felix. Although he was initially defeated by his fear of enclosed spaces, he later decided to confront his fear of the spacesuit with the help of a clinical psychologist named Therese. Therese believed that overcoming threats involves identifying all the triggers of fear. She had Felix draw a train on paper, outlining its route and stations. Felix then imagined passing through those stations, monitoring his heart rate. If his heart rate and breathing accelerated, he would pause, calm himself, and then continue. Therese also taught Felix techniques like positive reframing and proper breathing to combat his fear. Instead of imagining the spacesuit as a suffocating prison, Felix learned to see its uniqueness. It was a custom spacesuit, the only one of its kind in the world. It provided him with oxygen, allowing him to breathe in places no human had reached before. It was his ally, not his enemy. It could turn him into a superhero. By utilizing techniques like these and inviting rational thinking into the dialogue with fear, Felix gradually regained control over his anxiety. Whether one is afraid of insects, heights, or public speaking, they can adopt Felix's approach. We don't need to let negativity dominate us, instead, we can turn it into a valuable teacher. The author explains that negativity can make our thinking sharper and our resolve stronger. Taking criticism as an example, when our brain receives critical feedback, it becomes alert. Two psychologists conducted a study and found that individuals who heard positive comments followed by negative ones not only experienced anxiety but also developed a greater desire to improve themselves through action. These ideas bring to mind a saying, anxiety can both sting us and prompt us to take action. Moving forward, let's examine how the correct use of negativity can facilitate progress through a punishment-based system. There was a temporary company in the United States that faced a scandal. This company produced potato chips, but some consumers discovered offensive language written on their purchased chips using a black pen. It was traced back to a factory near Dallas, prompting a person named Glott to be sent to discipline the factory workers. In the 9 months before Glott's arrival, the factory had fired 58 workers. They used a punitive training system. When a worker made a mistake for the first time, they received a verbal warning, and it was documented in their record, which couldn't be deleted. If they repeated the offense, they received a written warning. For the third violation, an automatic unpaid 3-day suspension was imposed. Further violations led to termination. However, Glott believed that this punitive approach was ineffective. He introduced a system of non-punitive retraining. When a worker made an error, they had a conversation with a supervisor who highlighted their mistake and expressed the company's expectations, guiding them to fulfill their responsibilities. If the worker met expectations for the next 6 months, their previous records would be deleted. If not, another conversation occurred, extending to 1 year of consistent performance to clear the records. If they erred again during that year, they took a day off to reflect on their future with the company and the potential threat. Further violations led to termination. Despite resistance from many high-ranking executives who found this non-punitive retraining lenient, after the new system was implemented, the number of terminations decreased from 58 in 9 months to 19 in a year, and only 2 people were terminated in the second year. Why was the non-punitive retraining system more effective? It made workers accountable for their behavior and focused on improvement rather than confrontation. When their anger turned into guilt, workers endeavored to improve their behavior. Research suggests that individuals who easily experience guilt work harder and are more loyal to their companies. Everyone makes mistakes, and learning how to do better is crucial. The fastest way to help those who make mistakes progress is by using negativity correctly. Its power is so immense that you might not even need to fully utilize it. The mere existence of a future threat could be enough. Correctly utilizing negativity not only enables personal progress but also fosters a competitive advantage for a company. Consider choosing a hotel in an unfamiliar city. You might read reviews online and prefer those with high ratings. In the United States, there's a platform called Yelp where nearly 500 hotels compete for positive ratings in New York City alone. Over a decade, one hotel consistently topped the list, the Casablanca Hotel. It received numerous 5-star ratings and was often ranked first. You might assume this hotel is famous, luxurious, or strategically located with breathtaking views. However, it's a 6-story building surrounded by skyscrapers. Luck might be on its side with no negative reviews. Yet, negative feedback exists online, like 1-star comments about rooms being as small as closets and without windows, akin to sleeping in a coffin. What allowed this hotel to top the list? They listened to negative feedback from guests and responded positively, outweighing the negativity with more positive actions. One key figure behind the hotel's success was Gutman, who took over in 2005. The hotel's Yelp ranking was initially low, and it lacked competitiveness. Gutman realized that the key to enhancing the hotel's online competitiveness was avoiding negative reviews. Angry customers are more likely to leave online feedback than satisfied ones. Gutman introduced the Sunshine Rule, ensuring every interaction between guests and the hotel was positive, from booking to checkout. Staff greeted guests with smiles, expressed a desire to help them enjoy New York, and offered assistance. If a guest appeared unhappy during room inspection, staff reported it to managers who might change the room. Many improvements were based on guest complaints. For instance, if guests complained about street noise, the hotel admitted the issue and provided solutions like earplugs, white noise machines, and even headphones playing soothing music. In addition to regular touch points, Gutman created additional contact points with guests. Guests could enjoy free snacks and coffee in the lounge or attend evening receptions with wine and cheese. These practices not only left guests with a positive impression but also gave staff more opportunities to receive feedback and prevent complaints. Gutman said that by constantly measuring guests' temperature, they could identify small gestures that determined whether a review would be 4 or 5 stars. In a competitive landscape, online reviews can be both positive and negative, with some resorting to buying positive reviews or posting negative ones to harm competitors. But what about professional negative reviewers? Gutman's response was to end on a positive note in every response, regardless of who posted the review. The hotel addressed 3-star and lower reviews online, ensuring that what readers saw was not anger but the hotel's efforts. The way the Casablanca Hotel handled negative reviews aligns with the 4-to-1 rule the author recommended: counteract one negative with 4 positives. We already know that the power of negativity is not equivalent to positivity, negativity is stronger. But how much more powerful is negativity compared to positivity? Researchers have discovered that the impact of negative events is at least 2 to 3 times stronger than that of positive events. If you want to counteract the effects of negative events, it's best to have a slightly higher ratio, ideally 4 positive events for every negative one. For instance, when a guest leaves a negative review for the Casablanca Hotel with just a few lines, the hotel manager responds with hundreds of words. Similarly, if I accidentally say something hurtful to a friend, I need to be prepared to perform at least 4 kind acts to potentially offset the negative impact of my words. Of course, the 4-to-1 rule is not an exact scientific law. As the author puts it, it's a rough measuring standard to help us assess the weight of good and bad. Here, we've interpreted the essence of the book's content for you. We know that negativity is more powerful than positivity, primarily due to the evolution of the brain. To ensure the survival of human ancestors, the brain developed a threat detection system. Upon sensing danger, fear is triggered, prompting either a fight or flight response. In today's relatively stable world, lethal threats have diminished, yet the brain continues to send out sensitive warning signals, leading to overreactions, anxiety, and fear. Understanding why negativity is so potent and how it affects us enables us to avoid being dominated by it and to resist panic induced by fearmongers. When anxiety and fear arise from negative circumstances, take a moment to engage in rational thinking and internal dialogue. By understanding and overcoming these instinctual reactions, we regain control. Moreover, negativity sharpens thinking and strengthens determination. When criticized, utilizing the power of negativity correctly can prompt action for self-improvement. For an organization seeking to curb violations among its members, the quickest way is to engage a bad mentor to assist them in progressing. Correctly employing the power of negativity also enables a company to turn customer complaints into a competitive advantage. Looking back at the book's title, you can sense the intention behind it, trying to ease your mind, reassuring you that everything will be alright. However, the content doesn't just offer comfort, it reflects reality. Our brains tend to magnify the impact of negativity, expanding its scope. But in reality, things might not be as bad as we imagine. Even in the face of bad luck, bad news, and negative emotions, with a correct understanding of negativity, we can harness its power to help us improve and achieve our goals. If you often find yourself troubled by negative emotions, I highly recommend reading this book. The above is the essence of this book's content. Congratulations, you've completed another book. Thank you for your support and attention. Please subscribe to the Tim Booker channel for audiobooks. Like and share with your family and friends, spreading wisdom is worthwhile. Embrace a brighter future. Thank you and goodbye.